Okay.
Hi everyone, and a warm welcome to this month's episode of the Releasing the Real You show, where we talk about anything to do with health, well-being, weight loss, and anything else that would be of an interest in that area. And I'm really excited today because today we're going to talk about an interesting and a very topical subject, if I can call it that way, which is the menopause. And with me, I have Angie Garton, who's a menopause expert. She helps women 40, 50 years old approximately, who had enough of feeling stuck and lost, and they want to get their lives back from the menopause. And she uses science-backed, holistic and natural practices that work fast. We all know that, lots of people and lots of women worry about the menopause, and lots of people have masses of symptoms as well and moan about it all the time, but it also affects their lives in a big way quite often. So let's find out what we can do about it, how we can handle it, and how we can feel on top of ourselves, even though we might be going through the menopause or we pass menopausal, and maybe today you're struggling, but maybe tomorrow you might not, because apparently it works fast. So thanks, Angie. Welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about you, what you do, how you got started, and what got you to the menopause.
Great. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate that. So I describe myself as a menopause coach, often using the word holistic menopause coach. And I'm really meaning around that holistic word, meaning a whole body approach. So my training is in whole body health. It's not medical training. I'm not a doctor. We don't need to be doctors and scientists to be able to help ourselves through this. We need a better understanding of what's really going on in there. And when we do that, I find that a lot of the fears around it, when we understand what's happening, a lot of the fears can dissipate, and it becomes more apparent and more obvious what is actually going to help us to get through it, and really to be able to support ourselves. So I got around to doing this. Not a lot of people assume that it's through my own experiences of menopause, and I'm at perimenopause. I've just turned 43. I started using the term for myself, menopause coach, back in 2016, when I took training and certifications around this subject to be able to help other people. And it wasn't based on my experiences at that stage. I'm probably getting towards that way now, that I've got a little bit more personal input that I can give. But the reasons behind it, because back then I was pre-2016, I was working as a personal trainer and as a nutrition coach. So I was in the health and wellness world, helping women to feel better about themselves and to feel a bit more on top of their health. And a lot of women were wanting help with things like weight loss and energy and sleep, and the more I was trying to help them with these things, at one stage I was in a gym environment, and you're pretty limited when you're just seeing someone just for a week, an hour or two a week, to really help them in the way that they need help, and to really get a grip on what's going on for them, to have the deeper conversations rather than, what did you watch on telly last night? And that's what I was craving. I wanted a deeper connection with my clients. I wanted to help them more. I wanted the fulfillment for me. And also a big catalyst for that change for me from the gym environment and coming away from personal training was that I could see that I felt like I was letting my clients down, and I felt like I was becoming part of their problem, because I was talking about weight loss and fat loss and, you know, all these sort of big, heavy sort of keywords and topics. And it was like creating more stress for them. And I didn't want to be part of that. I wanted to be part of the solution. And the more I was learning about how to help them in like a theoretical sense and taking courses, the more I was learning about hormones. And because the majority of my clients were women, I was kind of funneled down that route of hormones and like the differences training women to men. And it was just becoming more and more obvious to me that I was needing to leave the just nutrition. I was needing to leave that environment of it just being in the gym and just being about exercise, like these little chapters of life that we just compartmentalize our health in. It was frustrating. So yeah, I started to talk more about hormones. The more I talked about hormones, the more people asked me about them, the more people wanted to talk about menopause and understand that, because back in the end of 2015, start of 2016, nobody was talking about menopause. It was like we didn't even, we were still calling it the change, and we didn't have any books, there was no podcast, there was no TV programs on it. And I would give talks and workshops and really have to explain the terminology so people could get the grounding and the real basics of it, which is absolutely fine. But it's just really come on in leaps and bounds just in the last few years. The awareness in general has really increased. There's still a long way to go, but it's really improved massively. So I'm finding that people 5-6 years ago would come to me and ask about things like low energy and how do I improve my sleep and what can I do to solve this problem and lose weight, and they would never mention hormones, they'd never mention menopause. But these days they're coming to me and saying, I need help with, I know I'm in perimenopause, or I know I'm at postmenopause and I'm still having problems. So there's that general awareness has really increased for most people, which is just great.
Yeah, I think as you say, you know, in the past, no one knew that it was even linked one with the other. So, you know, they did come to you for energy or lack of sleep or whatever. They just didn't realize it was somehow linked to be a symptom of being perimenopausal or menopausal, whatever. So obviously the menopause is something natural in the same way that we go through puberty. At some point we will go through the menopause or the change, or, you know, whatever you call it. Why do you think, or why do you feel women are so scared about it? Because one of the things that I see a lot is, you know, everyone is worried about it, everyone is apprehensive about it. Why do you think that is?
Oh gosh, lots and lots of different reasons. I think there are many answers to this, and I think one of them came up actually on my personal Facebook page a couple of days ago, because I'm very prolific on Facebook. I'm always writing things on there, and I try to share some personal stuff and professional stuff. You know, it's not all pictures of the dogs and my breakfast and things. Some of it is, but there was a story that I told recently, a few days ago, where I was creating some online work and some presentations for a corporate company who are looking to support their staff more, which is another new area that's really opened up. And I was looking through Canva, you know, you type in, trying to find images, you know, so it's just not all about bullet points. Nobody wants death by PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So I was getting some images up, and I curiously typed into Canva in images, photos, menopause, and all these images came up, which has happened before. I've never really looked through them properly. I just tend to use my own, but this time I thought I'd have a look, and the majority of them were pictures of older looking ladies generally with white or grey hair, usually wearing white. There's usually a clock in the background. There's usually lots of this and all these expressions of pain and discomfort and fanning themselves, and a lot of negative images, a lot of images that portray menopause as being something to fear. So yeah, why wouldn't we fear it? And not everyone's looking through Canva to find these images, of course, but that's generally how it's viewed by the media, by Western society. Not all societies, but certainly Western society. We see it as something to be feared, because it's all about loss and decline and slowing down, and this is the end of your life and things are all going downhill from here. And there aren't many people that are standing up shouting about how brilliant their life is now at postmenopause.
Oh my God, I'm so happy. I don't have any periods anymore. I don't have to worry about it anymore. So
yeah, we need more of these positive stories, because there are the scales are weighted in favor of, because misery sells. Newspapers and media and headlines, those things sell the struggle, the pain, the anxiety around these problems that we go through. So I think that's one huge part of it, that we are bombarded with images and text and audio and general perceptions of this midlife time of our life as being something that happens to us when we're white-haired and old ladies. So, oh my God, in our 40s it comes as a bit of a shock that what the hell's happening to me, because I'm not white-haired and I'm not an old lady, so shouldn't be happening right now. So I think that's a big fear that came up on my Facebook in the comments, and this general feeling that life is going downhill because I've got all these problems and life is shit and I can't solve it, and it's one thing on top of the other. And menopause, perimenopause comes at a time of life when we are dealing with a lot of stuff going on. We've got a lot of responsibilities, and if we think of it as being the opposite of adolescence and being a teenager, and it's kind of the other end of that, and we think of all that chaos that we went through as teenagers. Don't know about you, but that was horrific for me. I don't want to go through that again. So I've got that sort of in my mind of, oh my God, I don't want that to happen to me as perimenopause. So I'm kind of, dig the heels in a little bit. La la, it's not happening. I'll just ignore it. So we've got all these different layers going on that will affect anybody's perception. And you know what? There's even research that tells us that the perception that we have of menopause will even impact and influence our actual experience of it, which I think is fascinating and really exciting, because it means we've got more possibilities than we thought we had. We don't have to go along with the crowd. We can make our own camera images and make our own life through this, find our own path through it. Definitely.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely, so I went through early menopause, so I had no idea I was going through, or I woke up one day and realized that it was all over, and but thankfully, probably because of my lifestyle, I have no real symptoms. I know that there's certain things that I can't do anymore, or when I say I can't do anymore, it will affect me in one way or another. So if I have, for instance, in the evening a little bit too much alcohol, I know I won't sleep very well at night, which in the past didn't affect me so much, or in the same with sugar in the evening. If I have alcohol at lunchtime, I'm generally fine. So, you know, there's a few bits and pieces that I know I need to look after, but other than that, thankfully, I'm fine. But you know, you do hear, and I do hear from lots of people when it comes to, you know, weight gain, aches and pains, lack of energy, obviously the hot flushes that everyone's supposedly talking, well, not supposedly, that lots of people talk about.
Yeah.
I think, you know, fuzzy heads or forgetfulness, so much stuff that people are talking about, and so I'd love to hear from you, because I haven't experienced it, and I don't know if it's because of my lifestyle or not. I'd love to hear from you what we can do. And the reason why I say what we can do is, I just wonder if people that struggle are people that struggle throughout their, you know, their life in the first place when it comes to hormonal imbalances, or is it really starting around perimenopause and menopause? And obviously I am very aware of the fact that, you know, our medical GP surgeries, most GPs are not very clued on neither. So what do you feel on a, you know, you mentioned holistic and natural practices. So let's start and look at, you know, start with nutrition maybe. What can we all do that could help all of us to minimize or eliminate even symptoms that we feel or might feel or want to prevent from feeling as well?
Yeah, really good question. And as you know, I'm a very practical person. I mean, in all areas of my life, I'm very practical. So it's no surprise that I take a practical view as to what can we do about this. My favorite question from clients is, what can I do about such and such? Rather than the question of what can I take?
Yeah.
What can I take?
Yeah.
And yeah, there are some really solid, useful answers to that question as well. But first, it's about what can I do, taking the responsibility for ourselves. So when it comes to nutrition, one of the common mistakes that I see quite a lot is that we make assumptions. We make a lot of assumptions when it comes to health and our own health and menopause, and we tend to assume that because we are generally healthy and we know what we should be eating, everyone knows what's healthy and not healthy. We've all got that, you know, by this stage of life, we're pretty clued into that. And we tend to think that we've got that down because, you know, we're adults. We know what we're doing with our lives and we've managed to get this far. So, you know, I must be pretty healthy. And especially when there isn't a particularly bad health history, when things have been going well for a while and you haven't got that history of problems with periods, perhaps, you're not expecting things to go wrong. So the main problem I see is that people don't make any changes to what they're eating because they assume that being generally healthy, a general balanced diet is going to get them through menopause. And the truth is, it's not, because a general healthy balanced diet could mean anything at all. How many bags of crisps a day is a balanced diet? How many glasses of water is a balanced diet? You know, I could go on forever with that. I'm not criticizing anybody at all. What I'm encouraging people to think about is, how could I make this more specific to menopause, to take the hormones into consideration with our food choices? And a big aspect of this is not about how can I eat more estrogen? Which foods contain estrogen? That's a really common question. Let's leave that, because that's another sort of topic in itself. A better question and a better answer would be, how do I help my body systems through nutrition to be able to manage my hormones? Because the hormones don't have a mind of their own. They're told what to do by specific body systems. So if we help those through food, we've got more chance of getting in control of the symptoms, of alleviating them. And yeah, like you mentioned, we can actually eliminate some of them and get in control of many of them through food, and combining it, sort of layering it up with other practices as well. So I tend to think of it, I have all these little terms and things that I use with clients, little phrases and words that I've made up for myself over the years that I share with them. And one of them is hormonally helpful foods. Like a menopause friendly diet, what could be a hormonally helpful food? And those sorts of foods are going to help manage the hormones, because they're supporting the body systems that tell the hormones what to do. So, right, the nitty gritty of it, those foods, if you're waiting for the magic answer, it's the anti-inflammatory foods, it's the high fiber vegetables, the dark leafy greens, it's the foods that help to balance our blood sugar and help the liver. So there's quite a few aspects there. There's a few bullet points we could list all those. So anti-inflammatory is a big part of it, because through menopause we are more prone, we're more exposed really to internal inflammation, and that drives a lot of the problems, anything from anxiety to sleep problems to hot flushes. They're all driven by that inflammation and a few other things. So if we can reduce the inflammation through our diet, then we are helping ourselves to feel better. We're reducing the symptoms. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like a good plan when it comes to nutrition. And it definitely, I'm sure, for all of us, requires to make some changes as we go. You know, we might get away with a certain diet for a while, which, you know, is healthy, it's okay, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But as we going through the menopause, we definitely need to focus a little bit more and make some changes. And I personally, it's something that I wrote about today. It's not always about cutting out, it's about adding in. Because
Yeah.
you start adding in, you automatically reduce the things that doesn't serve you, because your body doesn't crave it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm with you on that one all the way. Yeah, definitely.
definitely.
And that makes me think of adding in like variety of vegetables and things, you know, piling our plate with vegetables. There's less room for the pasta and the bread and the sauces and the stuff that's less helpful.
Do you feel, it's one thing that I felt myself, and I feel myself, is that we get a little bit more you know, carb sensitive, or, you know, our reaction to carbohydrate is much bigger than it was before. So the effect of it in our blood sugar levels are much more up and down if we you know, have a little bit too much carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are science backed reasons for that, linking it with the hormonal changes. So having for one thing, estrogen helps us in many ways. It helps with the inflammation, and having less estrogen circulating through the body as part of peri and postmenopause, it means that we are less sensitive to the insulin that helps to balance the blood sugar. So we're needing more of it to have the same effect. So we've got more circulating insulin and less circulating estrogen. So in a nutshell, in a practical way, that means, yeah, I'm going to be more sensitive to those big rises and dips in blood sugar, I'm going to feel it more, whether that be about energy levels and sleep, or it could be some things, you know, to do with the menopause symptoms that don't seem even related to blood sugar, but they are things like hot flushes, anxiety, mood swings, and mood disorders can be linked very strongly with what blood sugar is doing. So yeah, there's a lot of links there.
Definitely, that's definitely something that I have felt. If I have too much sugar, you know, which thankfully doesn't happen very often, but you know, once in a while when you're out and about, it can happen because it's part of life.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's interesting because the minute you realize there's a link, it kind of makes you think twice. Do I really want it? Do I want to have a bad night's sleep? What am I doing tomorrow? Is it really worth it? And then it makes your choices much easier to make. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, exercise. Obviously, exercise is great. It's you know, good for our health. But obviously, we also know that exercise is a stress to the body in one way or another. Do we need to change what we do? Do we need to increase? Do we need to reduce? Do we need to, what do you think exercise-wise is a good protocol to go through?
Oh, good question. This came up, this exact question came up at the weekend. I was given a workshop on the beach, which was great. And I was chatting to one of the ladies about my own favorite type of exercise, which is running. And I really enjoy that for the headspace it gives me, more than the movement aspect of it. And she said, "Oh crikey, I haven't got to start running, have I? I don't want to start doing that. Is that how I'm going to have to deal with menopause?" I said, "Calm down, it's fine, don't worry. I'm not going to encourage you to start running if you're not already doing that. If you don't have a history of doing that, it's not a good idea to start doing it, and it's certainly not going to help you manage your symptoms. In fact, it could make things worse." So yeah, so what I was explaining to them about was the importance of resistance training and moving on muscles, and the balance really of having an exercise regime that is a routine, so it is a regular thing that we do, that's not all about the same thing, that's not all about, you know, nice gentle yoga or Pilates or a nice swim. It's not all about dog walking, or it's not all about CrossFit or even running. Has to be a little bit of everything, so that we're needing that stimulus for our heart and our cardiovascular system. That's never going to go away. They still need that support. We need to use them, use it or lose it. We need to use them, and that's going to help our brain, it's going to help our bones, so many aspects, circulation and all sorts of helpful things. But it becomes more and more important as we age that we are using muscles in a way that I think a lot of women are scared of doing and are put off from doing, because a lot of women, I'm finding my age and a little bit older, don't have the confidence to start picking up some weights, or they don't know what to do with a resistance band, so they don't use it. I have to explain and give them videos for what exactly are body weight exercises, squats and lunges, press ups, and they throw their hands up thinking, but my knees are sore and my joints ache and I can't do press ups. So we have to break things down and do it one step at a time. But these are the types of things that your body's crying out for, really. We're getting more and more need to retain the muscle, because we're losing the muscle as we age. That's a natural part of aging, apart from what's going on with menopause. And when we're losing that, there's knock-on effects to our bone health as well, and all sorts of things that we don't really want to encourage in the body. So yeah, there's definitely a need to reconsider, a bit like with our food habits. We can upgrade our food habits wherever you're starting from, upgrade them just one step up, one step closer to being menopausally friendly or hormonally helpful. We can do the same with exercise as well. So it's not like an extreme, doesn't have to be an hour a day of doing this, that, and the other. It can be done in 15 minutes 3 times a week. But various aspects need to be included, so it's not all the same. We need some variety.
Okay. Sounds good. And 15 minutes 3 times a week sounds very achievable as well. So
exactly, yeah.
Now, sleep, and the reason why I break it down like that is, you know, I'm a bit like you, quite holistic when it comes to the way I work with clients. And for me, there's definitely, you know, 5 steps that I promote. Obviously, one is nutrition, one is exercise, but sleep is definitely a big one. And it's probably, when it comes to the menopause, a little bit of chicken and egg, because some people say, well, I can't sleep well because of the menopause, but obviously we need sleep to be able to go through the menopause in a, you know, an easier way as well.
Yeah, this is a big point. I'm actually, it's sleep week in my membership group at the moment, so I've got sleep on the brain. They're asking me questions about that. And yeah, it's after hot flushes and night sweats and flashes, whatever you want to call them, those heat surges. After that, that's one of the most common symptoms. Statistically speaking, depends who's doing the survey. But the sleep problems and insomnia issues are the second most common, and they can start in our 30s. And the percentages of women who can struggle with things like getting to sleep, staying asleep, waking up early, not being able to get back to sleep, there's so many different issues there. It's a huge proportion, and it doesn't stop at menopause. These issues can carry on at postmenopause if we're not doing something about it. We need this hormonally helpful lifestyle all through our lives, really. It just becomes more apparent at the perimenopause phase. So with sleep, yeah, it's a big one, because yeah, it's not just about a bad night's sleep and, you know, feeling a bit grumpy the next day and being low on energy. It goes much wider than that. It's going to affect our immune system. It's going to affect our food choices, and again, how we manage food, our metabolism, our insulin levels, hunger hormones change, so we're craving all of the wrong sorts of stuff. Yeah, and it also, obviously, I don't think I need to explain to anyone that it affects our brain and our cognition. So yeah, the flexibility of what's going on in there is immediately impaired just by one bad night's sleep. And we really need this to be working well, because when we're talking about hormones, this is the top of the chain, really. It all starts in here. So all of the strategies and the helpful stuff has to start with, how can I help my brain, because this is deciding what the hormones do. So yeah, sleep is a big topic. And yeah, luckily there are a lot of things that we can do, but it does start with some understanding of what needs to happen to make sleep happen. And it's not just about having a dark room and opening the window. It goes a bit wider than that.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Obviously, yeah, food definitely affects sleep. Sleep affects our food choices. So definitely goes hand in hand. Stress, which is a big one. Obviously, at that time of our lives, generally, except for our personal changes that happen, quite often there's big changes happening in our family life as well, if we do have a family. You know, kids growing up, kids going to uni, sometimes changes at work. Lots of things are happening. how does stress, or what can we do to reduce our stress that will help our hormones? Because obviously stress is a hormone.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh,
That's a really important
mm,
point to make, actually. I just find all this fascinating. I live and breathe it. So it all fascinates me that cortisol and adrenaline, the stress hormones that we often commonly talk about in relationship to all these other hormones, um, they're not the bad guys. We think of stress as being, oh, I've got to avoid all of the stress, got to calm all of the stress down and get stress low as possible. And yes and no. We want to keep those stress hormones in the right levels at the right times, because there's different types of stress, of course. So when we're thinking about cortisol and adrenaline is a bit like lighting the match, and then cortisol is more like putting the wood onto the flames and keeping the fire going. So we can have a short burst of energy to run across the road, or quickly get things done where you're coming up to a deadline, and work quickly and make the quick decisions in the brain with adrenaline. And that's really useful. That's a really good thing to have. We need that. And we also need cortisol to be at high levels sometimes to get us up in the morning, for example. But when we have high levels of cortisol all through the day, rather than it coming slowly down that nice ski slope, if it stays high through the day, then we're not going to, for example, produce the sleep hormones and neurotransmitters at night. We're going to struggle with the brain fog. We're going to struggle with anxiety. We're going to have problems with blood sugar again, and food cravings, and all sorts of things. Hot flushes will be triggered. So cortisol can be a bit of a knife edge to walk sometimes, but there are some really simple things that we can do to help to manage that. And one really easy and just obvious thing is to get outside and get some daylight into the eyes, get some daylight in without wearing glasses. You need to take off glasses if you wear them, so that it comes through the brain, through the retina into the brain, into the parts of the hypothalamus that help detect daylight and tell cortisol when to be high and when to be low. So that's just one aspect of stress. But you're right, because stress as a whole, and stress can be triggered, stress hormones will be triggered at various times through the day, various times through the week, the month, whatever's going on in our lives. And you're right, there's often a lot happening for us at this time of life. I know there certainly is for me and my clients, a lot on our plates. And it's important. I don't think it's always possible to manage stress. We talk about stress management, that's a common term. I prefer to think of it as like, how can I manage my response to it? What can I do to help myself? Because it's a stressful thing coming at me. That's why I feel stressed. That's why it's creating a stress response when it's an emotional or a cognitive stress. So there's so many aspects, so many options that we've got. And the first question I ask a client on this subject is, what do you do for fun? What do you do for joy? What do you do for pleasure? What makes you laugh? And so many of them have to really stop and think about that, which is a problem. Yeah.
When you juggle so many different things, generally people forget to have fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It becomes all about what the family want to do and what's easier for them, and we'll just go along with the ride so that it's easier to keep the peace and just keep the day ticking along and not create more stress.
And
but it's so
as
important.
women, especially as women, somehow we get to a point where we put ourselves last all the time, just to, as you say, keep the peace or make our lives easy. But then, you know, it comes biting us in eventually, by, you know, having all the symptoms that can come with it, when we get to that stage, for sure. So, what obviously, you know, from all you say is, you know, the earlier we start with that kind of lifestyle, the lesser we probably will have, we'll realize that we're going through the perimenopause. So it is really a lifestyle that we should adopt, from early age. You know, all of us should ideally, you know, have an anti-inflammatory diet, you know, exercise regularly, sleep better, and regularly as well. Try and, you know, have some fun in our lives. So it's not something really that sounds like, it's something that we should have adopted it way earlier already, really.
Yeah, it's not wacky stuff that we're talking about here, is it? It's not totally off the wall, and I'm not asking people to only buy organic or, you know, go and book yourself a silent retreat every month. You know, it's not totally inaccessible stuff. A lot of these things, a lot of these strategies, a lot of these ways that we can help ourselves, they can be tailored to suit us, and we all have our own starting point with it as well. And you're right, the earlier we start this, the better, but it's never too late either. I can't tell you how many women say to me, oh, I wish I knew this. You know, I'm 58, I wish I knew this 10 years ago, because it would have made so much difference to me.
Yeah, it definitely would, but it can still make a difference going forward.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I say. Yeah, don't try and regret the past. We can't change the past, but we can change your now, and we can change the future. You can start now. It's never too late to start any of this.
Yeah, it's very similar to something I say to a client of mine who, you know, regrets lots of lifestyle changes they made, and you know, put on potentially masses of weight. And I'm like, well, you are what you are because of what you've done in the past, but that's not the issue. The issue is, what are you prepared and willing to do now to make a change? You can't go back in time, so don't blame yourself for anything. You know, sometimes it is, you know, life events that happened that, you know, caused certain, you know, issues, and, you know, they happen because they happen. So don't blame yourself for anything. Just take a decision today to make a change and help yourself from now onwards. Definitely.
Yeah, that's it.
So obviously there's lots of things that we can do by ourselves. Do you feel, with, you know, your knowledge and your experience, does HRT have a place, in your opinion? Because I know you said at the beginning, I'm totally with you on that one, you know, what can I take? And I hear lots of people as well, what supplements should I take, and what, you know, whatever. And my doctor is not prescribing me this, or, you know, just prescribing me antidepressants, which is not really helping me. I mean, potentially help a little bit, but doesn't help the root cause. So if someone were to make some lifestyle changes, would you feel that there's still a place for HRT to go hand in hand with it? Or could we all just make a lifestyle change and eat well, exercise regularly, and then we won't even need HRT?
That's a really good question. Really good question. It does come up quite a bit, especially with recent TV programs, media, really concentrating on this topic, stirring it all up. My personal opinion, after reading a lot of the research and doing some extra training myself, actually, as well as a practitioner, is that there definitely is a place I'm quite happy to talk to clients about their choices and include HRT in that conversation, because I feel that it is an individual choice. It cannot be a blanket approach that we all should or should not take it, or even if we all overnight magically adopt an anti-inflammatory lifestyle in all corners of our lives. I can't say that we would all come through peri and post menopause and live into our 90s unscathed, because without hormone therapy, because we each bring our own individual backgrounds, medical history, medications we might be on, you know, even past traumas and childhood experiences, all these things, all these pieces and parts of ourselves, medically, historically, social factors, psychological factors, spiritual factors of ourselves. There are so many layers to who you are. You're bringing that to menopause. So we each have our own version of that. And whether or not we're going to need HRT is going to be part of that conversation of who am I, what do I need, what's going on for me, what's happened in the past. So it's certainly not a blanket approach. I don't think I don't agree that we all need it by any means. And I don't agree that it should be taken as a preventative thing. I think that's going a step too far for me personally. I think we can use it as a tool hand in hand with the lifestyle factors that we know are effective.
Yeah.
And the issues that I have professionally, personally around HRT are when it's talked about as being the magic bullet that we all should take. And it's talked about in a way that if we use it, then, you know, it's kind of like the elixir of youth. Somehow it's going to solve all the problems. I think that's really misleading. And it's really doing women a disservice and not teaching them about the physiological system changes and process changes that are going on inside their own body. They've got a right to know what's going on inside them. And I've got to tell you, it's got a hell of a lot more than just estrogen decline. So I think that's a massive part of my passion for what I do, to help them understand what the hell's going on in here, and then they can decide how they want to approach that for themselves. It's an individual choice, but we can't put it all on HRT. It's a really useful tool, but it's not going to do it all for us.
And one thing I have seen with some of my clients, but lots of other women that I speak to, is, you know, even when they're on HRT, things change over time. To find the right dosage and exactly the right mixture is not always easy either. So it's not just, you know, give me that prescription and off I go and I'll be fine. It still requires some fine tuning as well, and some adaptation to your own personal situation as well. So I've seen a lot actually with people who are like, I finally got HRT, and then, oh, it's not really working. Because it's not the right one, or it's not the right dosage, or stuff like that. And then and then unless you're with a specialist who then, you know, does all the blood tests, it's really tricky to get that right balance as well. So
definitely.
So what do you think would be a good routine to look at your diet, integrate some exercise?
Well, you know, I think the starting point for all of this would be wherever the individual woman wants to start, but certainly there's some foundations that need to be in there somewhere, from from a hormonal perspective, I tend to think of it as three things, three sort of foundations that we're covering with those choices, with food and exercise and hydration and bedtime routines, morning routines, and stress is a huge part of it as well, massive part of how we can help ourselves. But it's really the science of it is reducing that inflammation. So anything that routine wise that we're changing, is it coming from the pot that says it's anti-inflammatory? We need that one. And we also need blood sugar management. So any of those routine changes that we're doing, does it hit the button that says it's going to help with blood sugar management? That's massively important. It's going to help us in so many ways, physically and mentally. And then the other one is about liver support, is something that I'm doing around my routine, daily habits. Am I giving myself some liver support? And that one can be a bit confusing for people, because then they're thinking, God, is she telling me I've got to start taking some supplements? I'm not an alcoholic, so I'm all right. My liver's okay. I don't have any problems. So I often have to explain this one a little bit more, that the liver has many hundreds of jobs to do in the body, and it's a huge organ in size, and it's a huge organ in importance for our hormonal health and our general well-being. And really focusing on the hormones, it's got a lot of jobs to do with balancing and managing and detoxing and storing nutrients and the all important minerals and things that really help with hormones. And so focusing on the liver really likes when you're drinking lots of water. It really likes when you're eating lots of vegetables, and it really likes it when you're not stressed. So those things sound a little bit like anti-inflammatory and blood sugar balancing. So they all come from the same sort of family. Yeah. So there's a lot of options that we've got for a routine that is hormonally helpful and is supportive of a menopause transition. But for anybody, I would really say, start where you are. And from this conversation, there's probably one thing that made your ears prick up a little bit and think, oh, that's interesting. I need to have a look more about that, or I could do that possibly. So that would be your starting point, and trying to add that into your routine or adjust things slightly. And I often talk, like I said before, about upgrading things, because we upgrade our phones and the car, even stuff around the house. How about upgrading our own routines and how we think about ourselves and the stuff that goes on in here? I think those are well due an upgrade. Yeah.
I love that. I love that upgrade notion. It's really good. So thank you for that. So we got a basic thing that we need to think about, which is great. Thank you so much for this. I think it was, I'm sure whoever is listening and viewing this might have some more questions. So how or where can people get hold of you? You did mention Facebook. Is that the best place to get hold of you, or is there another place?
There's a few places. I'm on Facebook pretty much every day, posting on there. I have a membership group that is also on a Facebook community, so I'm often in there. But there's also my personal Facebook. I kind of share a lot of this menopause stuff on there and talk about stuff on there. So you're welcome to comment on there, send me a message. I welcome friendly stalkers all the time on there. As long as you're friendly, it's absolutely fine. There's my website as well, with lots of information and blogs. So there's angiegarton.com.
They'll all be in the description of this video. Brilliant. Anyway, so yeah,
cool. Yeah, so there's a lot of information on there, and courses and programs you can join, and then YouTube and LinkedIn, all the usual places.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much. That was a fascinating chat. So if anyone is interested to hear more, listen more, or find out more, get in touch with Angie for sure. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next month. If you haven't yet subscribed to the show, then do so now on the subscribe button. And I will be with you next month for another, hopefully as fascinating episode as this one. So thank you very much.